Tyler, from Marcus Freeman's Monday press conference, we found out that cornerback Jaden Mickey is going to redshirt the rest of the year, and he will head into the transfer portal at the end of the season. Two-part question. How would you sum up the loss of Mickey, and who benefits on the roster?
I think it's a huge loss. And I'm not sure who benefits right now, Darren, because Notre Dame had a really good thing going with Jaden Mickey and with Christian Gray. I mean, those guys were Christian Gray, obviously the starter, the guy that everyone thought would win that job and has proved to be probably the more talented player. I mean, he's kind of like a Benjamin Morrison, and the luxury of with Notre Dame is you get to put both of those guys on the field. Now when you take those guys off, you're not replacing a Gray with a Mickey who's older than Gray, has seen more football than Gray at this level. And I mean, it's not that Jaden Mickey was bad by any means. It's just that Christian Gray was better. Jaden Mickey was still a serviceable, good football player for this team. You're losing that now, Darren. And I mean, I'm looking at the scholarship chart right now for cornerbacks. You have Morrison, you have Mickey, you have Gray. Those were your three core guys that basically rotated. Benjamin Morrison is playing pretty much every single defensive snap. And now I think Christian Gray is going to have to do that because you can't replace him with Mickey. Leonard Moore is kind of that third guy now. You've seen him play when Morrison does come off the field. He comes in and plays that boundary corner. But now it's like, okay, if you still want Morrison to play every single snap and you need Gray to take a break, do you play more on the field side to kind of spell Gray? Or are you going to see Morrison and Gray just do their thing and ball out the entire game? That's kind of where Notre Dame is at, because if you wanted a clear rotation with four guys, you're looking at, Carson Hobbs, who's more of a nickel at this point, is kind of what Notre Dame projects him at. But he has come in and played the outside as well. So, but those are two true freshmen, Darren, and Leonard Moore and Carson Hobbs. That's kind of where Notre Dame is at, and losing Mickey. And it goes back to like losing Chance Tucker to injury and losing Clarence Lewis, who you thought was going to be a player for Notre Dame and sticking around and being that veteran guy in the cornerback room. You're really relying on Morrison and Gray at this point, and that's a tough spot for Notre Dame to be in because like I said, Jaden Mickey was a good player. He's not Christian Gray, but he was giving you good snaps.
Cooper Flanigan, Irish tight end, out this week against Louisville, so that means more Eli Raridon to go along with Mitchell Evans. How would you describe the tight end position and its effectiveness so far this year, knowing that Evans has been ramping up from that knee injury?
Yeah, it sounds like Mitchell Evans is exactly where he needs to be physically at this point, which is great because he wasn't at the beginning of the year. We saw that when he only played 10 snaps against Texas A&M. I believe they were all third downs. He's playing. I think he played about 40 snaps in this game against Miami, Ohio, Darren. But he's not the Mitchell Evans that we saw against Duke last year and against Ohio State last year. The guy who was really Notre Dame's best receiving threat. He needs to get to that point because with Cooper Flanigan going out and Eli Raridon, who Marcus Freeman said is, he's getting better and better. Eli Raridon is not in every down, like receiving, pass catching type of threat for Notre Dame right now. So Mitchell Evans has to be that, or else Notre Dame does not have any of that at the tight end position, which would be a complete departure from what Notre Dame has been the last handful of years. Because you remember Michael Mayer, it was all Michael Mayer for Drew Pine in that offense in 2022. And last year, before Evans went down, it was all Evans at some point as well. So the receiver room is a little bit better now, but it's not good enough to be able to just completely eliminate a wide receiver type of threat from the tight end position. And I think, it's not to say that Cooper Flanigan was that for Notre Dame as well, but that you can have that with Evans. I think Evans has to get there, especially with Flanigan going out now, because Raridon's just not to a point where he's going to catch 3 to 5 balls per game. Evans can catch 5 to 7 if he's really on his game.
Tyler, why does Louisville have the chance to beat the Irish for a second straight year?
Well, because they could stop the run and they're really good at it. And if you stop this Notre Dame rushing attack, then odds are you can really pick apart its passing game too. That was the blueprint for Louisville last year. And like I said, Notre Dame had Sam Hartman, a guy that you trusted to push the ball downfield, but as soon as you stop that running game, he was throwing the ball into the wrong people's hands. He was throwing interceptions. We've seen that Riley Leonard is susceptible to that against Northern Illinois. That was kind of the blueprint for those Huskies was, hey, let's be physical up front. Let's make them throw the ball a little bit. Obviously, Riley Leonard was dealing with a little injury in that game and wasn't able to run. But, Darren, I am so beyond fascinated and intrigued to see if Louisville can stop Riley Leonard or at least slow him down as a rushing threat. What happens to this Notre Dame offense? That's why Louisville will have a chance to upset Notre Dame if you consider it that. I mean, I think Notre Dame. What is Notre Dame? A 4 to 5 point favorite in this game. I would go more of a pick 'em, Darren. Honestly, based on what we saw last year. Great coach team too. I mean, Jeff Brom knows what he's doing. Brings in a ton of freshmen. Brings in a ton of transfers, and you can't tell that these guys have only been in the program for a few months now. I think they brought in 27 transfers there, and it was like a ridiculous number, but he gets them to play Louisville football, gets them to play Jeff Brom football. And last year, Jeff Brom football was an issue for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. That's why Louisville has a chance in this game, because we've seen it before, quite frankly.
Tyler, we have about 1 minute left, so let me sneak this in. Marta Biaggi, special teams coach, is moonlighting as a secondary coach. With all the blunders on special teams, do you think there's a correlation between the two?
Yeah, there's a lot on his plate, absolutely. And I mean, some things just like slip through the cracks, I suppose. And it's tough because you thought that Notre Dame was doing something right and switching their long snappers, and then all of a sudden you botch a snap and you're like, oh my gosh, I guess the way we were doing it before was better, even though we have a 5'7" Reno Montefiore out there who maybe can't hold up in the blocking game the way that he should. So it's darned if you do, darned if you don't in a lot of these situations. But yeah, I mean, there might be something to him spending. We've seen it in practices there, and he spends a lot of time with those defensive backs, and maybe some things slip through the cracks on special teams. But I don't think that's going to happen again. Like, you can't be much worse than Notre Dame was on special teams in some of those instances. So it's going to get better. And some things have gotten better. Like, James Rendell's punting, for instance, so it was just a kind of a snowballing effect in that game on special teams there. And I don't think that's going to happen again for Notre Dame.
What should we expect at blueandgold.com this week?
Really, I mean, this is the biggest home game that Notre Dame will probably play this season. So, and that's a lot of Florida State's doing, but we're going to cover it and preview it. And there's going to be a ton of Louisville content up on the site. I know Mike Singer and Kyle Kelly are really working hard on the recruiting side of things. There's some basketball recruiting news coming out this week for Notre Dame. So go to blueandgold.com. It's a huge week if you're a Fighting Irish fan to kind of visit there and read through some things.
Tyler, thanks for the visit.